Today on The Necessary Entrepreneur, we have a fascinating guest joining us for the second time, an individual whose passion for the cosmos and dedication to education have made him a shining star in the world of astronomy. It's my pleasure to introduce Dean Regas. Dean's enthusiasm for sharing the wonders of the universe has reached countless individuals of all ages through public events, lectures, and his former role at the Cincinnati Observatory and previously co-host of the popular PBS series Stargazers, where he talked about to keep looking up. With over 20 years of experience in communicating complex astronomical concepts in a relatable way, Dean has become a household name in the field of science education. Beyond his work in astronomy, Dean is also an entrepreneur. His ability to blend scientific expertise with an entrepreneurial vision has enabled him to make a lasting impact on how we engage with and understand the cosmos. During the conversation, we discuss the differences and friendly rivalry between observational and theoretical astronomers. We also jump into self-actualization, internal validation, what makes a brilliant mind, and developing traits to give us the consistent paycheck as an employee for the sake of the entrepreneurial spirit. Stick around as Dean talks about the recent solar eclipse, going back to the moon, life outside of Earth, the possibility of the existence of aliens, and building a machine to divert an asteroid. Hey, thanks for tuning in. I hope you love this conversation as much as I did. Be sure to give us a like, slam the subscribe button so you never miss out on future content from The Necessary Entrepreneur. You can find out more about Dean Regas on social media everywhere and at astrodean.com. Welcome to the stage.
Hey, good to be here.
Yeah, right? It's always been behind the desk. It's always been standing up. You come to our studio at times and shoot things.
Yeah.
Where did these ideas come from 2 years ago? We had the benefit to meet Dean Regas a couple years ago. What has happened since then?
It was an interesting time meeting you a couple years ago. There was a little transition that was in the works, or maybe in the works, maybe just starting. Mm-hmm. I had been working at the Cincinnati Observatory as their astronomer since 2000, so 23, 24 years working there. And it was one of those things where I wanted to branch out and do more things around the country. I'd been doing talks at various places around the United States, working with the national parks. And it got to the point where I thought, I want to kind of make a impact outside the Cincinnati area. And I think we just had this thing you showed me around the studio, and I was like, I could use a studio and to do some video content. I was just kind of getting into social media and trying to navigate that, and having some really good actual video and audio I thought was really essential. And so I did the shameless ask, hey, can I use your studio? And you're like, yeah, sure, whenever.
I did the shameless response, of course.
And so it's been great. Yeah, I think because that response and people like seeing that, and it gets the word out a lot more. And so then about, last August, I took the plunge and left the observatory to go off on my own, and still trying to figure out what my title is going to be. We can let the fans decide. But,
yeah, I like that.
America's Astronomer is on there. The People's Astronomer. Rogue Astronomer. Oh, no. Okay, that's all I got. But anyway, so all right, we'll
the
work on
People's Astronomer.
People's Astronomer. That's right.
I think they call The Rock, the professional wrestler, I think they call him the People's something. So
yeah, he gives him the People's Elbow. I think that's what it is. So I'm the People's Stars.
So you're the People's Eclipse.
Well, that's my hope. We got this eclipse, which is incredible.
So tell us about this. We talked about it 2 years ago, and it was the hype. And so I like giving people grief. You've gotten to know me a little bit. So we walked in the studio and I said, Dean, you got to see that, but we didn't get to see it, right? Talk to us about eclipses, the type of eclipse we just had. I think there's a bunch of hype around eclipses. they're cool, but it seems like it's always the last one.
Yeah.
As just a layman out here, as a consumer of all things astronomy, I'm always hearing like, you better go watch this one because it's the last one. And then a few more years, another one pops up. So talk to us about all things eclipses.
Yeah, I mean, this eclipse that we just had on April 8th was all that and more. And I know, I hype it. I was the biggest hype man for this eclipse in this part of the country. And people were probably getting sick of hearing me and seeing me on TV. And then what happened was almost miraculous, that the weather was generally good everywhere in Ohio and Indiana and Illinois. And so many people got to see this. And that's what was so fun for me, is that, okay, I hyped this thing up, which of course it could be cloudy and then that's it, it's all over. And that so many people got to see it. And so what I've heard is that people who went to Totality, they said, Dean, I'm so glad that you got me excited about this, because I wouldn't have gone, and it was better than you described it, which is hard to imagine, because I basically said seeing an eclipse is better than your wedding day. It's better than the birth of your children. That's what I said. And I said that to the people, and they said, you're right, it was. So it lives up to the hype.
So maybe you are going to achieve the people's astronomy. So what is it about eclipses? When I think about them, I have this wondering mind at times. I like to say a curious mind.
Right.
But I imagine what it would have been like to be living as a human, a Neanderthal, whatever it is, thousands of years ago, not having the understanding that we have now, and that happened.
Yeah, it's a startling thing, and it's, part of it is scary. Part of it is this kind of moment where you're really unsure. I mean, you know what's happening, but all the descriptions of it don't really prepare you. All the pictures of it don't prepare you. All the videos don't prepare you. But when you're there and you feel the temperature start changing, you see the sky slowly go to this silver purple color, and you just you feel this energy that is a little apocalyptic, but also really invigorating. And because your brain has never seen these colors before, they've never seen this light before, they've never seen shadows that are all weird. And so I was, this being my third one, I was preparing for everything. I was like, okay, 10 minutes before Totality, do this. 5 minutes before Totality, really soak in the whole thing, because seeing this is awesome, but it's the whole experience, the whole environment. And it just was just watching people's faces as they're there. And so I got to see this at the Armstrong Air and Space Museum in Wapakoneta, Ohio. So that's Neil Armstrong's hometown. And I got a nice little setup with my telescope, and there were 10,000 people there. And the energy of all those people too was really mesmerizing. I mean, they're just, this cheer erupting, and just people screaming and yelling and crying and all this stuff. It's very emotional, and people are really surprised by it. So I was just soaking it all up and in and everything like that. And I'm usually a pretty big ball of stress on eclipse day. I was relatively calm. Mostly because there were other people that were stressed out nearby me. And so I was just like, oh, yeah, whatever, relax. We'll see another one in 20 years. No big deal. I was trying to be chill. But it just was, it was better than I remember. And I think that seeing some before made me kind of really get ready to look for specific things with this one.
Was it Totality where you were at? Did you hit it right?
Oh yeah. So it was about 4 minutes of Totality. So, but there were some extras that I was not ready for, and I've been kind of rehashing this, because it's like you have this rush for this amount of time, and so I've been really documenting, writing down things that I observed and things that I saw that was different, that I didn't see 7 years ago at the other eclipse.
One of them would have been?
Well, one of the weirdest ones was, you see it in the picture here, is the prominences. Those are those little pink things that are sticking out the side. So you see in this picture, this little pink V-shaped thing. you could see that with the naked eye. Like, and you didn't see that 7 years ago. There were no prominences sticking outside. So that's a solar eruption that you look up there, you see it, this neon pink sticking out the bottom. And, you could just hear people in the background. What's that? Whoa, what's that?
Are they always there? We just don't see them because we can't look straight at the sun?
So yeah, if you have a special solar filter, you can see those sometimes, but not all the time. And so we're at a really high sun activity time right now called solar max. So we do have a lot of more solar activity. So people seeing that was really cool. And a little, during totality, your brain, it just switches off. It switches to weird, bizarro land. Like, I could not make complete sentences. And I know this about myself. And people are asking, what was that? What's that pink thing? What's that pink? And so I was recording. I put a video of it. And so then you also get the audio. You don't hear my voice for about a minute and a half because I could not speak. And finally, the first coherent sentence that I hear myself on the tape saying is, it's a prominence. That's what that is called. And that was the only thing I could say.
So your brain wasn't working. You were so in the moment.
No, and that's what's so fun about it. So then once my brain kicks in again, like, okay, let's look at this. Let's try to so I had some binoculars and I was kind of looking around the outside of because this is the time where you can stare right at it. You don't need filters or anything like that. So looking at the prominences up close. And then, well, all right. So here's the thing that I don't know if I should tell people, but.
Well, why shouldn't we?
Well, because you're supposed to wait till totality to stare right at it.
But you didn't.
No, I looked early.
And you can still see.
I can still see just fine. And so what happened was I was giving these talks about eclipses like months and months leading up to it. And so
you had some really big audiences.
It's been great because the fact that this came so close to Cincinnati was just, amazing. So I was given one of the talks and I had a video taken from one that I saw in 2006. And you could hear they had an astronomer that was doing the play-by-play, basically, like saying when to take your glasses off to stare at it. And I was watching the video and, he says, take your glasses off and stare at it. And I'm like, I remember seeing the sun coming around the moon. Like they call it the diamond ring. It's the last little bit of sunlight coming around the moon. And I remember seeing that vividly. And it occurred to me, he had us look early. 5-10 seconds early, easily. And I was like, I didn't think about that at the time. I was like, well, here's the professional. He told me to look 5-10 seconds early.
So it was okay.
So I'm going to learn 5-10 seconds early this time too. No problems. So I got to see that last little bit of sunlight and then the whoosh when it happens.
That was probably cool.
And then I looked 5-10 seconds after too.
No more though.
No more.
No more.
Once it got a little too intense, and I was like, okay, all right.
Time to look away.
Time to look away.
Because you really will damage your eyes.
You can. That's the thing, and it is dangerous to look at the full sun, and especially if you've been in darkness for a while. But that little bit, I thought I'm going to risk it just for that 5-10 seconds.
And it was worth it.
It was worth. I mean, seeing that whole thing was just so cool.
So, are you going to chase these around the world?
That's the plan. I think what this has taught me is that I don't want to miss any more. That they happen so infrequently and are so cool. I've been not lazy, but I've been like, if they're in America, I'll go see it, or if they're close by, I'll go see it. But I think it's like, why not go to Spain
in 2026?
Why not see Spain? I've always wanted to go to Spain. Why not make that excuse? Mm-hmm. Why not go to Egypt in 2027? Australia, New Zealand, and then Japan, and
that's why you're the people's astronomer, not America's astronomer.
I'm not going to be. I'm going to be the astronomer of the world.
There you go.
So that'll be the plan. So I don't want to miss any other ones.
Can we go ahead and predict and project where totality will be now in Spain in 2026?
Oh yeah, absolutely, down to the block.
How do we know this?
It's amazing because of lots and lots of observations. We've been watching the moon and the sun and our pathway around everything for millennia, and we've got it down so precisely that you get down to the exact second and everything. But yeah, but there's still room for improvement. So there was a modification to this last one. They were using old data to predict the exact path, and the new data puts the sun at slightly larger than we thought it was. So the eclipse path was slightly different, not by much, but slightly different. And so even then, there's still room for improvement.
Because of the size of the sun.
Right. So the sun's bigger, so the moon can't cover up as much as it was. And so, yeah, it's shorter length of time for certain parts of it.
What word should we use? Ironic. What word should we use that the place of totality in 2024 happened to be an area in Ohio and some other places that Neil Armstrong, the first person to walk on the moon, his hometown. What's the word that we should use to describe that?
It's a pretty cool coincidence, I would say. I would say it's pretty cool that happened. And because, the weather was the biggest thing for me that I was going to be like worried about. But that place was always number one on my list of where I wanted to go. Because Indiana, you'd get a little longer, like a couple seconds longer. Texas, you get a little bit longer. But there was something about, number one, I wanted to see it in Ohio because I'll never see another total eclipse in Ohio. And then two, just having that place, it was just too good. It was just too good. And I'd been working with them a little bit in the past year and doing some programs with them as well. And I talked to the director and I was like, get me can I have a parking spot? He's like, sure, yeah. If you bring a telescope, you talk to the TV and all that stuff. I was like, oh, sure, okay. And then I said, yeah, but there's one little thing. And he said, he knew what I was going to say. He said, it's cloudy, you're not coming. I was like, no. He's like, I respect that. And so I was talking to him 2 days before the eclipse. And he, called me and he said, so are you coming? I was like, I don't know yet. Weather forecast is not great. Or we're not sure. And he said, oh, I envy you, man. To be able to travel if it's cloudy here, I got to be here because this is my house, my place. I got to be here. And I kind of said, I think it's going to work out. And so I made the decision pretty much the night before. I said, well, I'm just going to go there. And
I saw the post on social media. I was like, he's going.
I'm going. And so what was really cool is I know a lot of people are kind of waiting to watch to where the place to go. But I think a lot of people went to so many different places. Like, I don't really know of a lot of people that went to the same place. So people went to like Harrison, just right west of here,
yeah.
Or Hamilton, or Oxford, or Batesville, and lots of different places. And so people were really spread out, which I thought was really, really cool. And even my parents, I got my parents to go, which was a huge deal. I thought there is no way they're gonna like drive to totality. So they live up in Columbus, and they were just off the line about, they were going to get about 98% or so. So I looked on the eclipse map and I saw IKEA north of Columbus is going to get a minute at totality. And, my parents are in their 80s. They don't drive a lot, but they don't drive. And so I was like, well, they know where the IKEA is. They have a big parking lot. I'm going to throw it out there. And I thought, 50-50 chance they're going to go because they are probably like you, hear all the hype about eclipse, and they think, oh, there's no way it could be that good.
They definitely hear the hype.
They definitely hear the hype. So after the eclipse was over, I got a text from them and said, we saw it. Now, I didn't know if that meant they saw totality or they saw it from their house in 98%. So I had to call them, and I was on the way back from Wapakoneta, and they're like, no, we went to IKEA just like you said. It was so awesome. And we got to see the whole totality. Oh, we were just like, we're still buzzing about it. And the most important part is, they said, my mom was like, and your father knew the back roads to get there and back. We were home in no time. I was like, oh, hey, that's great. Back roads.
We're good.
The eclipse and back roads, what could be better?
For an afternoon for parents.
That's right.
How'd that feel for you? Being still the son, the grown-up son, of parents participating in something that's your passion for life?
Yeah, it was really it made me really happy that they did that, because it's one of those things that it's hard to share with others, this kind of passion for this and the eclipse chasing and that kind of thing. I really wanted to watch it with them, actually, because I really wanted to go up to Columbus and watch them up there, but the weather was a little iffy, so I was like, and they know the deal too. It's cloudy there, I'm not going. It's like cloudy during eclipse for Christmas or Thanksgiving, I'm not going. Sorry. But but they actually, now that I think about it, we did see an eclipse together on Christmas. There was a Christmas eclipse way back in the early 2000s, a partial solar eclipse, and we saw that. That was really cool. But yeah, having them see that, and it is kind of funny, because when I first started as an astronomer, they weren't quite sure what I did. Like it was like, well, so how's this a job?
Isn't that always what parents ask?
And how long are you going to do this for? And
how are you going to pay your bills?
Right, yeah. And I was like, no, they actually pay you. Oh. They still were like perplexed as to where this source of funding comes from. And they were like, they're thinking, we're going to have to support Dean at some point here when this is, and I'm like, no, it's working out. And so I think it was maybe about 10, 15 years ago where I gave a talk and they came to it and they're like, whoa, this is a real job. He's good.
He knows what he's doing.
Yeah. So that was kind of really cool. And then when my first book came out too, that was one thing I could, there's something about being an author that really, I'm so happy that being an author is still viewed as such a respectable thing. And I think that really kind of helped as well.
Yeah. Were they teachers? What do they do?
Yeah. So my mom was a former teacher and my dad was a former engineer.
See.
So we got the combo of the things of the way of the teaching.
Yeah, they're proud of the book, and they're proud to hear you speak about something that you're like, he really knows this. So the engineer said he really knows it,
right.
And the book comes out, and your mom's like, wow, he's an educator too. This is awesome.
Yep. I think so. So that was really cool, and so yeah, now 6 books later, it's been going well, and working on a book right now with Clovernook. This is the place for visually impaired here in Cincinnati, and they are one of the biggest producers of Braille books. So we are in process of making a astronomy book in Braille with pictures also and text, but it's going to be really cool. So people with sighted people and people with visually impaired can read the book at the same time.
So a big question that we didn't touch on last time.
Yeah.
Did we really go to the moon and walk on it?
Ooh, we're going right to that one. All right,
This is coming up again.
I know.
In big ways.
Yeah. And you still hear people that are saying, we didn't go to the moon and here's some proof and all that stuff.
Because the proof to me sounds credible, some of it.
Yeah.
Here we go.
But it's more of that. The proof is, the way that I like to do is I like to flip it around. Mm-hmm. And you can nitpick every little picture and every little video and say, oh, well, how did they do this? That game's going to go on forever. They're going to say, well, what about this picture? What about that picture? And then if you explain it and they say, okay, yeah, but what about this picture? The way that I like to flip it around is the onus is on them. It's not on me to prove that did or did not go to the moon. It's on them to prove that every picture is fake. They have to show me every picture is fake, not 1 or 2 pictures here, every one. And so if I show them a picture of astronauts walking and bounding on the moon, and they can't explain how do they do that, well, what are we talking about?
Because somebody was there filming.
Somebody was there. They were walking on the moon. You can't explain how they did that, then what are we arguing about? So the onus is on them to prove all of them fake. So don't give me 1 or 2. You got to prove them all. Mm-hmm. How come? This is what I always like to say, is if we faked that gravity, because the moon gravity is 1/6, and they're hopping along on the moon, they're moving in a way that's completely unlike on Earth. they are kicking up dust, that the dust flies up with normal force but falls with 1/6 gravity. Every little thing is moving like that. And how do we fake that? And I think, okay, we've had movies since then. Matt Damon that goes to Mars on The Martian. He's on Mars, where Mars' gravity is different than Earth. So we could do that for Neil Armstrong, but Matt Damon on Mars is walking and working just like he's on Earth. And you know why? Because they can't fake it for Matt Damon. And so, sorry, I'm getting worked up.
No, I love it. This is why we ask the questions.
Another one. We'll just say, we'll throw Brad Pitt in there. Brad Pitt, Ad Astra, they go to the moon. He's on the moon. He's walking around. He gets off an escalator and there's a little sign that says, "Welcome to the moon." And everybody's walking around like it's Earth gravity. Can't fake it for Matt Damon. So, man, sure, we can fake it for... yeah. So it's all these claims are, it's like, yeah, so you have to prove to me that that's a fake.
So you believe we did?
Oh, there's no doubt about it.
No doubt about it.
No doubt about it. And the other conspiracy theorists say, oh, it's all a big NASA propaganda thing. I'm like, okay, what about the Russian pictures? The Russians flew the other side of the moon, took pictures of it, go to space and all the time. Do you think we would want them to fake it too, and we wouldn't call them out? Oh yeah, well, I always love this. They're like, oh, the Americans faked all the pictures. And we're like, okay, the Russians faked the pictures, and they're like, yeah, they probably faked pictures. So imagine the Cold War. The Soviet Union sends a spacecraft to the back of the moon, takes a picture of the back of the moon,
the dark side,
the far side of the moon. Yep. Nobody's ever seen. They take a picture of it, and the Americans see that picture. And they don't call it out as a fake. Like, we're in a war with you, basically, to get to the moon first. And if they faked it and we didn't call them out, and I'm like, so you're saying we didn't call them out because we were going to fake our own picture 3 months later?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you Russians. No, yeah, you guys did it because we're going to fake our picture later. So, yeah, thanks for faking your picture before us. Great, good, thanks. I mean, it's ridiculous. And the Chinese, that they can go up and do these things and land on it, why wouldn't we call them out as fakes? There's no reason why. And India and Japan, all these European Space Agency, they can all send things to space, and we're all in it together because we're all really friends with the Russians and Chinese right now.
Correct.
So, I mean,
we're buddies.
Really, that makes a lot of sense.
So we're going back, supposedly. We're going back to the moon. What's the story about this?
Yeah, sorry, I'm going to dial it back
down. No, it's good.
So,
let's go.
Yeah, I get worked up about that, guys. All right, so now I'll go down to 10.
That we are.
I was at 11 there. Now I'm going to go down to 9 or 10. No.
So we're going back.
Yeah, and so there's this new mission called Artemis where we're going to send people back to the moon with these crews that are going to go out there. I have mixed feelings about it, and I'll be honest, because it's like, are we going to be treading any new territory? Are we going to be doing anything new? And it's, there's a lot of things with space missions as, it wasn't the old Star Trek show, going where no one has gone before. And it does seem like in the recent years, we're going where we've already been before. And that was actually my line for when William Shatner went to space. Like, he goes up for 15 minutes and then comes back down. I was like, Captain Kirk, going where dozens have gone before. But anyway, going back to the moon is exciting in the idea of, the only way that I can really get on board with it fully is if it is practice for Mars. Going back to the moon doesn't really hold any really great strategic or scientific value to us that I can see that we haven't learned already. We have landed on it with 6 missions. We've landed on with rovers. We have an orbiter going around it, taking all the pictures we ever really need. So going back, this may be wrong. I don't have the imagination or something. But I don't really see a moon base being a viable thing because it doesn't help enough to get us to where we want to go, because we don't want to live on the moon. That's not the future for our escape plans. So Mars is really the place we want to go and explore more. So if this is a practice to Mars, I'm on board. If this is let's go to the moon just to go back to the moon again just because we want to, because it's been 50 years and
we need something to do.
We're having our midlife crisis.
Yeah.
And we need to go back there. I'm not so excited about that. But and that's the thing is, will it garner the same interest that it did 50 years ago? I don't think so. So I think for a PR standpoint or like an inspirational standpoint, I don't think it's going to have that same impact, but it might. You never know. That thing had a cultural impact.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you go to the eclipse is, for me, I think we're going to see how that inspires people in the Midwest, I think, especially going forward.
It'll probably inspire some people and some kids to want to be astronomers.
I think so.
You know?
Yeah, I think so. And so, going back to the moon, I think has that impact too, that you could see, that there's futures as being astronauts, which probably 10 years ago probably wasn't the case, because it did seem like everything was kind of shutting down with the manned space programs. So, but yeah, if this is a kickstart to something more, let's do it. Let's do it.
What are we learning about black holes? We're learning new things, aren't we?
Yeah, so black holes are those really, really mysterious objects that have incredible density. Nothing can escape it. Gravity's so intense that, not even light can escape it. So what happens inside a black hole is a complete mystery. There's no information, because no information's coming out. No information's coming out, so we can't really tell what's going on there. The latest kind of little surges in this is that we're identifying more of them. Mm-hmm. So there's a super massive one in the center of our galaxy called Sagittarius A star, but we're also finding smaller ones that are in the Milky Way galaxy. None of them anywhere close to us to swallow us up. So in the scale, in the things to worry about category, black holes, death by black hole is probably not one of the things you got to worry about.
What do we think is yet unknown about science, about what they are? Like we don't know. We talk about gravity and all the things that Einstein figured out. What do you think we're going to learn or know? Is your brain on that a lot? Like, what is that?
Yeah, I have a funny relationship with black holes because I'm not that enamored by them. And I know people love black holes. They love learning about them. They love thinking about them. But we know so little about them that I find them not very interesting. It's like
you're not curious about what they are.
It's like they're like a mysterious reclusive celebrity that you can't get any really good pictures of, or you don't get any insights about what they're really like. You can't really.
You're more practical. You focus on the things that you can study and figure out.
Yeah, I'm what's called an observational astronomer. So we deal with things that you can see with telescopes and observe. And so we can observe a black hole, but beyond that, what happens inside is all theoretical. And so this is the classic rift that we have in astronomers is we have the observational astronomers, we have the theoretical astronomers. So we joke with each other pretty much about theoretical people come up with ideas and this is how this could be working, this is how this could be happening, and we say, all right, well, we'll let you know when we actually see it in a telescope, tell you if you're right or not. And then they take our observations and say, oh, well, we figured out what this is actually doing here based on your data. And so we have a very friendly rivalry, but for me, I'm the theoretical people, there's the people who get into things like string theory. These are things that can never probably be proven or disproven, or multiple universes. And not scoff, that's a too harsh of a word.
They're just playing in it.
That's pretty close.
Okay.
I usually scoff. I'm why? Come on. Yeah, I mean, multiple universes. I'm yeah, all right, sure, maybe there are some, and so I always joke with them. I'm like, yeah, maybe there's another universe where there's another me talking to another you, but in that universe, I'm interested.
Makes sense. So what would we need of a black hole? Why can't we get a 3D image of a black hole? If we had that, would you be more interested?
It would be more of like a 4D image of
because like what's happening, really where's it going?
Yeah.
Right. So like, what's
Over
the side and the back?
time.
What's the entire? Would that be more interesting to you then?
It would be, so the more what it's so new, and the pictures that we get are so blurry because they're hard to get. I mean, you have this object that doesn't give off light, so you can only see it when it's silhouetted or anything like that. You can see it as it affects things around it. It's gravitational pull. So you see things going around an empty space. It looks empty, but it's really full with this mass. So that part appeals to me. That's really cool. Watching these over time is going to be interesting. And maybe I'm one of those people that I'm like, well, there's this one star that's getting close to one of the black holes at the center.
Let's observe that.
Give me a call when it swallows it up. How about that? Like, let's talk.
But then we can't observe it anymore, though.
But then you see it coming in. That's going to be pretty cool.
Does it change what happens, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, the part about the black holes that does get me really excited is the technology behind how we actually get pictures of them. It is unbelievable how these engineers have figured out to connect telescopes from different parts of the world, connect them with these high
resolution.
These super fast cables that they can like get together, and they are essentially, you link them, and the distance between them is the size of the telescope. And it is incredible that they could find those two black holes that ran into each other that way. And so it's just getting started with that type of field. That's going to be really exciting because you don't necessarily need a space telescope. Eventually, there could be a time where the entire Earth is a telescope. It's, in
where
theory.
we're looking out everywhere.
Yeah. And so we're starting down that path where that could be a thing. It's going to be cool.
Would Dean go live on Mars? I'm not saying the first person to rocket there. Would you go live there?
Well, if I was... Actually, it would help if I was the first. That would just, I wouldn't mind being the first. If I'm going to go, I might as well be the first.
The first one might crash into the.
Well, that's true.
into the red planet.
That's a good point. I go back and forth on that one. It's interesting because the journey to get to Mars, it's 7 months to get there, 1 year on Mars, 7 months to get back. So 26 months is a round trip. That's the most logical. That's going to happen. We might be able to shave off a few months here and there, but not much. So we're looking at a 2-year trip. The dangers are mostly en route. The radiation exposure is what you're going to get, probably past lethal levels, there and back.
But if you could be there safely.
If I'd be there safely and it took me 2 years to get there and back, yeah, I'd do it.
So there's going to be people
especially if I was the first one.
There's going to be a lot of people that sign up for this.
There's lots. They have no shortage of volunteers to do this, and they have no shortage of volunteers that will go one way
and stay.
And that is a very interesting ethical question. Would we as a society be okay with sending people on what are essentially suicide missions, that you're going to go one way and live out the rest of your life on another planet if you volunteer, and that there's an outside chance we might be able to rescue you someday.
But how's that different from our existence here?
You could be walking down the street and anything could happen, and or you could think of the people that immigrated from country to country, or people who went to Australia for the first time. There was no thought of them ever going back. And you live out your entire life on Mars. I don't know what I think about it. I think that that's a tough one. I can see both sides on it. I'm like, you can, if you know the deal ahead of time, anybody that's an astronaut knows it's a dangerous profession anyway. So you kind of know that. And then I usually joke with people about, I don't know if I would go. but I certainly would watch somebody else go.
That's life now.
And so if people volunteer and say, yeah, I want to go one way, all right, sure, why not?
Do you really think this idea of us developing a plan to get off of Earth when Earth is no longer sustaining for us, is that hundreds of thousands of years in the future? We don't know what that is, right?
Yeah.
So is this idea of planet hopping, because what are we going to planet hop to? Because we don't see the planets in our solar system that we could go live on.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to planet hop to
Pretty
places,
far.
places that we don't even know the conditions of now. So are we doing this for thousands of years in the future of what our human ancestors will know then?
Yeah, the idea of us being a two-planet civilization is really, really hard to imagine for me. And again, I might be lacking the imagination other people have, but I'm pretty realistic about how space travel is. And, if we want to look at how difficult space travel is, we don't have to go any farther than the moon missions. Mm-hmm. Last moon mission was 50 years ago. Why haven't we done it again? Really expensive, really doesn't give you much. Mm-hmm. Robotic crafts can do that. Now, if we want to go and make someplace livable, that's another level of complexity. So if we take all the moon missions that we did, which cost billions and billions of dollars, that sent 12 people to the moon for a few days each. So if we want to rescue 1 billion Earthlings and send them off planet, how?
And where?
Where? No, yeah, number one, well, I'll go with the how. How, we don't have the rockets to do it. We don't have enough money in the whole world to be able to do that. And then where do we send them? We're not going to send them to the moon. We're not going to send them to Mars. That's the thing. And this is hard to oh yeah, that's my other nickname is Buzzkill Astronomer.
Let's go. So the Buzzkill.
Buzzkill Astronomer.
Yep.
I hate to tell people
you're pragmatic, right? I mean, that's really what's happening here.
There is nowhere for us to go right now. There is no place that we know of where we can survive. And beyond, we can say, all right, we can make a moon base. We can make a Mars base.
Who would want to do that?
Well, but then even if you do that.
But who would want to live there and raise future generations and all that? What? Just to survive and exist on the moon? What's there?
And if Earth goes south really bad, it becomes unlivable. That's the only place to go. We have a nuclear war. We have something that destroys life on Earth. There's a place to go. But even best case scenario, we make a moon base, we make a Mars base, where maybe you get hundreds of people to go there. Let's say 5,000 is if you get 5,000 people to get to Mars.
Maybe that's the people that have the kids there, then nobody else goes.
Well, so this is what I like to tell as the people's astronomer and the Buzzkill Astronomer at the same time. Do you think you are valuable enough to be one of those 5,000 that's going to be saved? They're going to need astronomers, and they're going to need Buzzkill astronomers, and they're going to need real estate. There's going to be a lot of
real estate to sell.
So the two of us are probably in, but the rest of, we're probably.
So just like the pandemic, what'd they say? Who's essential? So we would be essential.
We would be essential. And if I really think that, boy, yeah, I don't think I'm going to make that cut. Unless I can, knock Neil deGrasse Tyson out of the way or something like that. I think he's getting on it before me. So, it's not a practical thing, and so that makes me, we really, that's one of the perspectives about astronomy is that the other worlds out there are so incredible and so fascinating, and but none of them. You can't survive on any of them. This is the only place that we know of where you can walk outside and not die instantly.
So other than the sheer numbers game, because we believe, are there billions of planets? It's unknown. It's infinity, right?
Right.
What we can perceive universes to be, they're infinity.
Yeah.
We don't see any end.
Yeah, and it's the scale of the universe is you can't wrap your brain around it. But even just the technology of the last 10 years, we're finding planets around other stars. We would have never thought there'd be planets there. So we're looking at potentially billions of planets in our galaxy.
There's probably another setup.
There's probably another setup.
Who knows if there's human life or what it looks like, but there's probably organisms of some sort there.
Right.
Because what do you need? You need a sun, a moon, and a planet, and all the right.
Yeah.
Right. That's what you need.
Atmosphere, water, good temperature, that kind of stuff. But even if you have all those things, that not necessarily means there's life there, or you get the right. I mean, just think of our atmosphere. If we change just a little bit of our atmosphere, if it's not just nitrogen, oxygen, you add something else in there, you're a goner. And so it does give me this really amazing appreciation of Earth.
Of what we have.
It really does. It's hard to not be like an Earth lover after this, because we're finding all these other planets, and maybe we'll find a second Earth, but how do we get there? Right. So the only place we can go is in the solar system, but none of the solar system spots are going to work. There's that idea of like, okay, we could terraform Mars. We could turn Mars into an Earth-like place.
Because there's an argument maybe it was at one time.
Yeah. So it did have water at one point. It did have an atmosphere, and then it lost it. And it's like, well, I lost it for a reason, and maybe we can generate it, but can we generate it again? But the idea of the amount of energy, money, time, resources to change Mars into Earth, why can't we just keep Earth like Earth? It's a lot cheaper. A lot cheaper to keep Earth like Earth. I gave this talk about Mars, and Mars is the worst place on Mars, or the best place on Mars is still way worse than the worst place on Earth. Like you go to the bottom of the ocean, you're still worse off than Mars, or you're still better off than Mars. And
the hottest desert with nothing there.
The harshest, glacier. You're anywhere, and so I said that. It's like, yeah. So the worst place on Earth is still better than the best place on Mars. And somebody's like, even better than Cleveland. I was like, yeah, Cleveland. Yes. Sorry.
Valid point, Cleveland.
Sorry, Cleveland.
So this entrepreneurial journey that you've been on, talk to us about it. Are there regrets? Would you do it over? What would the dean tell himself then that you know now? Talk about this.
Yeah, so being a gainfully employed at an observatory had its benefits. So I was at the Cincinnati Observatory for 24 years, and it was one of those places where I loved it. I loved the observatory, and I think that was part of my platform. Is it was like the two of us were kind of intermingled. And it got to the point where I was just thinking, there's more to the world, there's more to the universe, and there's more places that I want to see and experience also. So I'd been, visiting other observatories. I've been doing things with national parks, and I thought, I want to kind of branch out and do more. So it was a really tough decision to leave there. But it's been so rewarding and so good. And if you ask if I have any regrets, I have zero regrets. I wouldn't regret saying that I should have done it sooner. I think the timing of it was right. It was the push, to get out the door, and the things going out to do. It was really good timing, because we had an eclipse in last October, and then we had the big eclipse in April. And it was like good timing for that, because, man, I don't know how many times I said the word eclipse in the last 4 months, but
right.
It started losing all meaning after a while. And it was, doing interviews and getting all this, and I'm like talking to the interviewers, and before we're on, I'm like, I know you're just using me for right now. That's fine. I know come April 9th, you're not going to be asking me. But that's all right. I appreciate the attention now.
Take it when you can get it.
I will take the attention.
Yes.
Exactly. So the timing on it was perfect to kind of launch this new endeavor. And It's been great. I've like those first 4 months of the year, I've been busier than ever. But doing it because it's for me. I do it what I love, and that was always the thing. Is that the idea of astronomy for me is such a genuine passion. Like I probably didn't say this last time, but maybe I did because I was employed at the time. And but I would do it for free. I would do this for free. So now that it's my job, I'm not doing it for free. By the way, I'm not doing it for free. But that's what it comes across. And that was the thing. I was like, I don't need an observatory to do this because of this passion that I have for it, that it comes across to people and they immediately get it. I am still like a big kid with this. I mean, I'm doing this 25 years and I'm still like giddy about eclipses. Even less than that, even like little things. Like if I do a program where I show views of the moon to people through a telescope and they are excited. I am equally excited. It's like, it's one of those things where when you found your calling, like that was the thing. And I think one of the other parts that I probably learned from my going off on my own is that you want to surround yourself by supportive people. You want to surround yourself by things that you're feeling you're going towards a common goal and things like that. And it's one of those things that now I can kind of like pick that a little bit better and align myself with that. And
you're not just dealing with directors, you're not just dealing with boards, you're not dealing with those types of folks that maybe you're imposing their perspective or their ideas. And if you're not in line with it, oh well, this is what you're going to do if you're going to be here, right?
That's right. Yeah, and
maybe it's okay to accept that for a while. Maybe it is while we're learning and growing as humans.
Yeah,
right?
I think so too. And one of the things that I observed when I went to other observatories is that there was a kind of tendency to kind of put the astronomer in a certain box. Like, okay, we got an observatory. We got to run the historic observatory. What do we do with this historic astronomer? And I'd seen so many places, so many observatories where that person's office kept getting farther and farther into the basement and farther away from decision making. And I thought, that is not my fate. I am not going to be the astronomer in the basement that they wheel out every once in a while with the long beard and be like, back in my day, we looked at eclipses. I didn't want to be that person. Or that they like, oh yeah, the telescope's broken. Let's get Dean in here to fix it. I wanted more out of that. And that's a tendency. And so for observatories out there, I got to tell you, that's not the model to do it, because you're going to end up with an observatory that is historic and
that doesn't have someone inspiring being a part of it.
It doesn't have the passion for that. So there's definitely some observatories that get it right, and but when you see that happening, you're like, yep, I think it's time. And it's been really good. Like when people ask and they say, oh, well, how are you keeping busy? I'm like, this is busier than I've ever been, because people, when I first started, I was, and this is the thing, because I am an old-fashioned guy in a lot of ways. Like I thought, oh, I felt like I'm leaving a job. Like why? I never leave jobs, and I'm like, isn't that what everybody does? Like, first off, people were like, you were there for 24 years? I was like, yeah. In my mind, only 24 years. And to them, they're like, good Lord, that's an eternity. And so... And
you didn't hear that while you were there too often, did you?
No. That's the thing. It's like, because it wasn't even a thought. It's like, I'm going to do this the rest of my life, and this is a great place. But then so then when I'm going out to do programs and I was starting to set up and I say, okay, and I would say, well, I'm not at the observatory anymore, thinking, all right, this is going to be a deal breaker or something like that. And it's the Midwestern politeness, they're like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear about that. And then 1 second, 2 seconds. Yeah, but you can still talk, right? Yeah, but you can still do the program, right? It's like, yeah. It's like, oh yeah, because we want you.
So your identity wasn't tied to a place; it was you.
Exactly, and that was so powerful to hear about that, because I was very worried about that. That was the one thing I was thinking. Okay, if I don't have this legitimacy, but the legitimacy was there from
your work.
And that is the big plus of being in this community for so long. I mean, doing education for 24 years, builds up a big reputation. For Cincinnati especially, they love that. I am still not officially a Cincinnatian because I didn't go to high school here.
However,
I think I paid my dues, so I consider myself a Cincinnatian.
A couple decades is enough.
Yeah, I think that. Hopefully that works.
So, were you ever worried about giving up that consistent paycheck?
Oh, yeah, it was. Not that I was becoming stinking rich being an astronomer. It was a little bit of a concern, and I did. But I did the math on it, and that is one of the things is I'll take that from my parents' side, the practical side. It's like, okay, so there are certain things that I knew I was going to be able to do, can continue. So one, I'm still doing a podcast with WVXU and Cincinnati Public Radio, so that's a monthly thing that I get to do with them, which is a really great project that's expanding really nicely. I had articles that I could write for the Cincinnati Enquirer, for Farmer's Almanac, for the magazines, that kind of thing, and then books, and then speaking. And so when I added it all up, I was like, this is working out. And I'm doing better now
than you did. Yeah. But I think the message is that if you wouldn't have put in, I don't know if you had to put in 23 years, but if you wouldn't have put in significant time, right, developing what your voice is, right, making connections, relationships, being the people's astronomer. If you wouldn't have built that, you wouldn't have had the platform to have all these streams of income.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You put in the time, you put in the work.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that I feel like. I come across sometimes as a laid back guy, but there is always something going on in here. Like I'm an astronomer all the time, and vacation I'm doing astronomy, and so everything is pretty well planned out, and I also reflect too. So there is I was thinking that. I was trying to add up, and I think I've done more than 5,000 presentations, in astronomy. And I can remember almost all of them. Because I think back and I think okay, what did I do there? What worked? What didn't work? And reflect on that. And so it's not OCD. It's not even that. It's more of just this I want to do the best job that I possibly can, and so and good Lord, the ones I always remember the ones that didn't go well.
Yeah, but that's where that comes from. See, but you have a healthy relationship with it,
right?
It doesn't stress you out. It doesn't demotivate you. It doesn't cause you to lose self-esteem, right? Because you truly want to do a great job.
Yeah.
You don't mind the critique of yourself, right? That's a healthy interaction.
Yeah.
That's what I know about that. And so you're like, I remember and focus on the ones that didn't go well. That's what makes you great.
Yeah. And I think that is one of the, I don't know where I got it from, but I am about as self-motivated as possible. Yeah. And I, of course, love to hear praise and all this kind of stuff, but it's more internal. It has to come from me. It has to be I can reflect and say, okay, this didn't go well. This didn't go well, or this is what I want to happen out of this. And, even if somebody's like, oh, well, that eclipse was boring. I'm like, well, that's your problem. But
but inside, you're probably still going,
I could have done better with teaching that thing, but it's still more of like the validation is mostly
it's internal.
It's still internal.
That's what's so important about it.
Yeah, and I think that that's my kind of compass, and I know that, and that's. I do kind of see that is rare with people. I think a lot of people really do need that outside validation to get it.
But you know what's bad about that?
Yeah.
When they get the outside critique.
Right.
That's the issue.
It's devastating.
Yes.
It's really hard to do because they think, I welcome critiques, and I I will act upon them, but I will also be like, that's not a valid critique.
Yeah. But being able to do that in an honest way.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's a self-awareness.
Exactly.
To truly be honest with yourself. Like if somebody said something didn't go well,
right,
you internalize it, you think about it, and if it didn't go well, then you work on it.
Exactly.
But then you're confident enough also to say, that's some BS. Come on, guys. Right?
Right.
You're out of line there.
Yeah.
What traits, now looking back over the past year and a half, 2 years, what traits maybe that you didn't have, or that you didn't realize that you had, or you still need to develop, are necessary to go from being an employee to then being your own boss and an entrepreneur? Were there some challenges, or did you realize like, wow, I didn't know I was good at that, or I better work on that?
Yeah. I think that there is, working with a team is definitely challenging sometimes for me. That's for sure, because I'm so like independent in a lot of ways. And so that has been something that I kind of developed over the last 10 years working at the observatory, is kind of working with the team and being part of a team. And I'm an idealist, so I will always want the situation to be perfect for other people, and for that they're getting the same kind of thing out of it. But it is one of those, it is a weird thing to hear when people just say like the self-actualization thing. It is a rare thing in our society, I think, to be, because I think there's a lot of people with insecurities and with like negativity and that type of thing. And if I think back, that would be the one lesson that I would always hear from people, but I never really acted upon it too much. For the idea is that you want to really don't surround yourself with negativity. Don't surround yourself with negative people, because there are people out there that are miserable and that don't
they don't have any good intentions for you.
No, and
they don't know how to.
That's right. And so the idea of that, when you walk into a room and somebody is happy to see you and you're happy to see them, that's the kind of situation that I want to be in. And the reverse is, it's very hard to avoid in the modern workplace. But I think that's the thing, is that if I could go back and tell myself that, it's just like, surround yourself by the people that you want to see.
And know that you can do that with intention.
Right.
I don't think when you're an employee and you're in a bubble, I don't think you understand that, because you're like, well, my family's my family. Well, these friends that I've known for a long time, I'm committed and loyal to them. They're my friends. And these people I work with, I mean, I can't make them quit, and that's really not my job. We should try to get along. We think we're stuck with these people.
Yeah.
And to actually have intentionality behind, like, no, I'm going to decide that I'm not going to participate with these people any longer, and I'm going to go choose others.
Yeah, and it's hard to come to that realization where you're like, this person is not really interested in my success, that's for sure.
And they're not good. They're not good for me. Maybe we shouldn't be together.
That's right. Yeah, and so it is a amazing thing, because by and large, with the field of astronomy is one of the most positive ones that there is. There's no doubt about it. Like, astronomers have this kind of like kinship, and also this. I don't think I'm an outlier with how I do things. It's like, so if I go to visit another observatory, I send them a cold email be like, hey, I'm coming to visit. Can I check out your telescope? Almost always they're like, yeah, what day are you coming? And it's like this. And then there's also a group of amateur astronomers that are, in a lot of ways, just as professional as professional astronomers. That they have it's their hobby to have telescopes and to image things, and it's one of those fields where the professionals and the amateurs are almost on the same line in a lot of ways, and they have a lot of interactions with each other. And so that, whenever I go to a amateur astronomy club, which there's some all around the country, it's like the most welcoming place. So it's like that's the kind of places that I like to hang out with.
So are you being an observational astronomer and not a theoretical one? I know we touched on it. I kind of know the answer to this, but are you concerned with anything that we don't know yet at all? Is there right?
Yeah. Concerned.
Interested.
It's tough to be concerned in a lot of ways because for astronomy purposes, because there's not a lot you can do about it. Mm-hmm. If there's something that's bad that's going to happen in the universe, yeah, you're kind of in trouble.
The eternal optimist of Dean, right? Is there
Yes.
anything, so maybe not concerned, but is there something like, you know what, if I get to live for another 30 or 40 years, that would be really cool to know that.
Yeah, so it's funny that you mentioned that, and we have this in the background because the eclipse is super inspiring to me. It is the quintessential thing of being an astronomer and observing things on Earth, just the setup of it. And, so I do a lot of pouring through maps and see where future eclipses are going to be. And I was going through, because this date was marked on my calendar. April 8, 2024 was marked on my calendar ever since I started astronomy. And I didn't know exactly where I was going to be, but I knew I was going to be in a place to see totality. So there's dates also in the future, 2045, August 12, 2045, the next total eclipse going across the United States. So I was thinking, I'm going to see these. I'll see 2045, no problem. But then you start pushing it back a little farther and you say, okay, well, there's 2050s, 2060s. And so I saw these 3 eclipses in the United States back to back to back in the 2070s. And I thought, all right, 2079, May 1st, 2079.
55 years from now.
May 1st, 2079. Where can I make that? And just, full disclosure, I'll be 105 and a half. And I thought, I can do that. I'm going to do that. And I'm going to make sure that's going to happen. And, you need goals in your life. And I thought, you need something to look forward to. And I see that people that have, happy lives and long lives, they have this, certain goals. And I know this is a completely ridiculous goal to see the moon go in front of the sun by that time for like the 13th or 14th time in my life. But, as I wake up and as a 100-year-old, I'm going to need something to do. Mm-hmm. Why not look forward to that? So that is my goal. May 1st, 2079, I will see that and then drop dead the next day or whatever.
Why not in the midst of it?
Or in the midst, yeah, at the end of it when totality is over.
Stare into the sun and you just don't even survive anymore.
That I'll just keep looking. I'll just keep looking the rest of the time if I can even see by then.
Did you even know that all those years ago from that show you were on, you're like, keep looking up.
Keep looking up, and I'll just look up, and then I'll be dead. No, and it is funny. The people, it is a little bit of a morbid thing. This looking forward in the future, and even showing people like doing talks about eclipses in the future, and you're like, oh, this one's in 2045, and you can see the audience kind of like, am I gonna?
What are we talking about here? Can we just think about tomorrow, Dean?
Yeah, I know. Well, this is, but again, I think like, so as far as things happen, like And there was the story of the 105-year-old guy that saw this last eclipse. It was his 13th one. And I was like, okay, that guy can do it. I've been trying to interview him. I'm trying to get an interview of him for the podcast because I want to get his tips on how to live to be 105. But
Where does he live?
he's in upstate New York, so
You might have to drive to New York.
I might have to. Yeah, his retirement center was in the path of totality for this. I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but yeah, he didn't have to go very far. So
I'm pretty sure his travel arrangements are more difficult than yours.
that's a good point. Yeah, I was hoping we could talk to him on the phone or something like that. But yeah, maybe I need to make a little pilgrimage up there.
I think maybe you do. Is that Albany or?
That's a good question. I can't remember exactly where he was, but yeah, somewhere up there.
105. Maybe it's something about living in the cold too.
Could be.
Could be.
But I do need to start making some lifestyle changes if I'm going to make 105. But it's like I joke about it, but I'm starting to get more serious. Like I'm thinking, well, why not?
Why not hit the gym a little bit, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Eat
Why
a little
not?
better,
Why not eat with a rigid approach?
That's right. But then again,
that's not fun.
Yeah. Then again, as we get older, I'm feeling every single day worse. But anyway,
Isn't that fascinating?
And I'm thinking, but then at the other plus side is, I'm like, well, I don't know if that affected any of my career decisions, but if you think about it, it's like I'm not even halfway done.
There you
go. I'm finding myself to be a surprisingly optimistic eclipse chaser.
Well, I think astronomers, it seems how we've gotten to know each other, that astronomers are just optimistic. At least the observational ones are.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe not the theoretical.
Yeah, the theoretical ones, they get a little morbid and dark and broody and sometimes smoke some pot. I don't know. But anyway, so who knows what they're doing over there. But
the theoretical pot
yeah, because they're
smokers.
always they're like, oh, like, what if the universe is infinite? Oh, yeah. Well, but there's got to be an edge. No, there's no edge. So that's all they do.
Unfortunately, I think without smoking the pot, I would steer more towards being a theoretical one. I don't know why, but I would. I feel that inside of me. Yeah. It's good for me to talk about the positive, happy, observational Dean, but my brain goes to those places. It's all the questions of how and why are we here?
Yeah.
Where did we come from? That's a deep, dark black hole itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
You just don't mess with that at all? You don't do that in your quiet moments and don't share that with anyone?
Purpose of my life is to look at that. No. I would say, I don't know. I don't get worked up on the purpose of life so much.
You don't want to know where that came from, though?
Well, I mean, I know the mechanism. So, but it doesn't.
Doesn't do anything for you.
No, because it's just added worry, I guess. I mean, the only thing in space that somewhat worries me is being struck by an asteroid someday. And the only reason why I think about that one is because that's something we could actually do something about, is that we could build a spacecraft to divert the asteroid before it hits us.
They're working on that, right? Maybe.
Yeah, not enough.
Okay.
But,
didn't we recently land something on an asteroid?
Yeah, we landed. We knocked one on purpose to see what would happen, which I find kind of hilarious because we knew exactly what was going to happen. We know the mass of it. We know the mass of the thing. We know we're going to hit it. We know we're going to hit it at.
You know what's going to happen.
So it's like, but I guess in practicality, it's like, could we build a rocket that could hit a small object at that speed? So
to divert it.
Mission accomplished. They were able to do it.
So where's the optimism, Dean?
Because we haven't built the right spacecraft. They're running into it.
Well, Elon's working on it for us, okay?
I know. I have no doubt that he'll be able to solve everything.
What's up with his brain, huh? That guy.
Yeah, I don't know. It's maybe he went up in space and didn't tell anybody, and I don't know. But the potential for him is incredible. And as far as the billionaires in space go, he is the only one really contributing to the furtherment of science and exploration currently. But there's he could use a little guidance, I think, maybe. Use a little.
Think how lonely it has to be him.
That's right.
How intelligent and smart and brilliant and what his mind's doing all the time.
Right.
There's no one else. Not many people are going to play in that area.
That's right.
So who's going to be able to positively impact him? Who's going to be? Think about how your brain works,
Right.
all the time, right? How do we think his brain's working?
I know if I could psychologically analyze him,
It has to be massively lonely.
something's going on in there, and it's on a feedback loop. I think it's the externals are not getting through, and it's all inside, kind of running on a hamster wheel.
Yeah.
And the hamster's not doing so good.
Yeah. And there aren't other little hamster buddies that are intelligent enough to hang.
Or something. Or
Something's going on.
Yeah. So it's.
What do you think? What makes a brilliant mind? What do you think makes that? I was talking to someone yesterday. I had a nonprofit board meeting, and I told the guy, he's like, man, it's really good to meet you and talk to you. And I said, well, I appreciate that. But I said, hey, man, listen, I'm not interested in what my IQ is.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I just think about solving problems.
Right.
Right. And so he said, yeah, man, but you're talking about these things and breaking them down the way that I said, I don't have an agenda.
Right. Yeah.
So, right. So I said, without my agenda, without my idealism around these things, I'm willing to just deal with the facts. But what do we think a brilliant mind is?
Boy, yeah, that's a tough one. Because people were asked, like, so what's, like, do you have a intellectual idol or something like that? Or do you like, who's
like Thomas Edison seemed normal, but think of all of the invention.
Right. Yeah. I think for me, it seems like I think adaptability is a huge thing. Like, I think being adaptable is one of the biggest signs of something, that you're not going to just do something because that's the way it's always been done, but also that you have this insight to say, like, okay, I can do this differently, I can do that differently, I can also hear other people's ideas that I don't have the answer necessarily. That it's not, I wouldn't go as far as that philosophy of, like, the smartest people are people that know they don't know. I think that's a little, that's not, you just got to know something.
Yeah.
So,
There's a curious mind that's mixed in here somewhere too.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's the only hope, I think, is that if people are curious and not settled, I think it's not being open to learning something new in a different way, I think, is really important. And yeah.
So to wrap this up, in case you want to say something else, you can think about it. But do aliens exist? So we dealt with moon landings.
Okay.
We dealt with eclipses that you guys always tell me it's the last one every time, and then there's another one. Aliens in the form, I don't know what an alien would be. Is it these little, white things that don't have noses and, that we see? But do aliens in some, not human form, but in a intelligent form, do you think they exist?
I do, but I can't say that scientifically. It's not coming from a scientific basis, because at most you could say statistically, you got all these stars, you got all these galaxies, you got all these planets. Is the Earth 1 in a million, 1 in a billion, 1 in a trillion? So you could say, all right, there's trillions of galaxies, quadrillions of stars, all this kind of stuff. Statistically, one of them should be like Earth. We can't just have Earth be the only Earth. But statistics isn't quite, it doesn't prove certainty, that's for sure, just because we have one. So I go back and forth to say, is there, well, no, I wouldn't go back and forth. I'd say there's no scientific proof to say there's another Earth. So that means I just got to go by my hunch, which doesn't mean much, but my hunch is, sure, I hope so. I mean, the universe is so vast, it should have more than one place where life exists. And when I talk to, like, biologists that say, like, oh, Earth life is easy to make. And when I hear that, I'm like, are you sure? I mean, like, we've come a long way to get to this point, like all the time that went in to get us to here. And they're like, oh yeah, life is going to form in lots of places. Just you wait. And I'm like, well, okay, but again, we don't know. And Earth had some weird stuff happen to it in its past to get to where we are today. So again, it's just a hunch that it's there. I feel pretty strongly as every day goes by that aliens are not those little gray, noseless, big-eyed creatures. I feel pretty strongly as the days go by that we are not visited by UFOs and we're not visited by aliens. And the videos of all the UFOs are not good at all. I mean, I don't know if I said this the last time, but I would love, this is what I would love to see, is somebody get in color, in focus, detailed, high definition video of a spacecraft.
And why hasn't that happened? With the billions of people and all this technology we have, why isn't that happening?
Exactly.
Right.
And you got the Navy pilots with their best radar and best cameras, and they're still black and white grainy things. And because they're not UFOs, they are something else. They are
something we've created.
Crap. So I was thinking, all right, so if you were going to travel, so I'm going on this really weird tangent lately where I'm thinking like, if we're going to send people to Mars, we got to be practical. We should send people that don't eat very much and don't excrete very much. So I'm thinking, let's send small astronauts. Astronauts should be smaller. And then I was like thinking like, all right, so if we have astronauts that are smaller, because then you're lighter, then you can fly faster, you don't have to take as much stuff. Spacecrafts could be smaller. You don't need to have a giant rocket anymore. You can make a spacecraft the size of a credit card and send it out in space. So I'm like, if aliens were on this scaling down kind of thing, aliens aren't going to be coming in big UFO flying saucers like we would do. They'd be coming with little tiny things. And so I don't think aliens are little gray things. I think aliens are already here, and we can't even see them because they're so small.
Now that's some theory. We just went to the place of theory.
I'm going down to this oh yeah, this is what the theoretical people do. I would get along great with them. They're like, oh yeah, microscopic. Yeah, even better than that. I'm like, yeah, they could be inside you, controlling you right now.
Oh, we've gone off the deep end.
I know.
All right, so to bring this back a little bit more, what do you make of evident asteroid impact locations on Earth? What do you make of those? Like
the craters that we have?
There's no question what those were.
Yeah, it's terrifying how these, like Meteor Crater out in Arizona is this well-preserved one, but then you got all these others that have been eroded away that we still can see the remnants of. The dinosaur killing one that's off the Yucatan Peninsula. It's, there's
another one that's going to come. They didn't just stop.
Yeah, exactly, and that's it would be interesting to see when was the last really major one.
There's the Tuscuscan one, but it blew up above.
Right,
it didn't impact, but it.
Yeah, so that was in 1908, and that was
in Siberia.
In Siberia, not over a city, thankfully. If it was over a city, it would have wiped out a lot of it. Yeah, it's the good news is the Earth is mostly water. So 75% chance it'll land in the ocean. That's a slight plus. Nobody has ever been killed by a meteorite to date that we know of, or at least the last 100 years since Tunguska. So it's been a while, but it is definitely something that we should be thinking about. And the plus side is we are in a point in our evolution where we could do something about it. No creature before has ever been able to avert this, and we now can. We have the ability to see things coming at us. We have the ability to build a spacecraft to move it out of the way. We're doing the former. We are doing these searches all the time. We're not building that spacecraft yet. So
maybe they are.
They would tout that if they would do that, because you wouldn't want to build it out of just the generosity of your own. Like NASA's like, yeah, we're gonna like sneak this in and nobody will know about it. We'll put a little budget item. And we're not going to ask for China's help or Russia's help. We're going to save the whole world. Nobody will ever know about it.
So how much time would we have if we know one's coming?
Right now we don't have much warning. So what we need is 5-10 year warning to say, like, we can get that spacecraft up there, use gravity as a tugboat to move it out of the way and miss us. Blowing it up and running into it is not a workable solution.
Like the movies drill into it and blow it up and put a nuclear bomb down in it.
I know the Bruce Willis method sounds great, makes a good movie. The real method is very boring and would not be a very good movie. But yeah, so I think we got to get the governments to work together. Russia, China, us. We build the spacecraft together. Call it the save the world rocket. We can store it in the United States for 1 year, then move it to Russia for 1 year, then move it to China for a year. So everybody can have the opportunity to have it in case we need to launch it to save the Earth.
Okay. So one more question. The movie with Matthew McConaughey.
Okay.
Where he lives on a farm and him and his daughter go and find this, what NASA becomes, and then he's in space in all these different dimensions. That movie is really fascinating to me.
Yeah.
It comes back often.
Yeah.
You have any thoughts about it?
No, I really like it. It's Interstellar, I think, the one you're talking
Yes.
about. And that one's really, the parts about that I like the best are when they visit those planets, the weird planets with weird weather and weird activities on it and time dilation. That part was really cool. So it is definitely on my list as being one of the really cool sci-fi movies. The end was I could take it or leave it. I don't want to give a spoiler, but he can somehow push a message through a bookcase to his daughter.
From different dimensions.
From a black hole. I'm like, yeah, okay, well, that was written by a theoretical astronomer, that's for sure.
That hurts my brain watching that.
Yeah.
It does, that movie. It seems so fascinating because you think about all the what ifs and wow, these are new ideas.
Yeah.
It hurts my brain trying to comprehend all of that.
Yeah. And that's what those theoretical astronomers do. So that's why you're on their side and where I'm much more relaxed and calm.
Without hurt brains.
That's right, exactly. Yeah.
So what are you excited about for over the next 12 months? What's Dean excited about?
Next couple months. So I'm going to be heading out west a few times, working with the Grand Canyon again here in June. Bryce Canyon, going up there, doing some programs with them. And then hanging out at the Lowell Observatory, which is in Flagstaff. It's a really cool historic observatory. And then traveling around to the Midwestern observatories. So kind of making the rounds to a place called Yerkes Observatory up in Wisconsin. They have the largest refracting telescope in the world. 40 inches in diameter, 60 some feet long, is so cool. Another observatory in Madison called Washburn. And another one in Des Moines, Iowa called Drake. So there's like these old historic observatories around. So I'll be making the rounds there. Lunar eclipse in September, which I hope to see from Grand Canyon also. So I'm hoping to do another trip down there. And then maybe starting to think about 2026 in Spain.
You should put together a trip that people can pay and go on with you.
Yeah.
You should do that.
I'd be a fun travel guide, that's for sure.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah.
Like you could do the whole Spain thing. People, I think they'd spend $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 a piece to go on that trip.
Sounds like a good entrepreneurial thing to maybe do.
I think it's legit. I think you could probably find 10 or 20 people that would love to go do that with you.
Yeah.
And you could tie an entire, you could do some, I don't know, you could find something in Spain also that ties in with astronomy. And there's a lot of history there.
Absolutely.
So there you go. So find a travel guide. Wow, this could be good.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, man. All right. He's going to put it on his website. You got to pay $7,000 a piece.
That's right.
He does take 20% gratuity, so $1,400 a piece. That's
added on to that. Yeah, absolutely.
Man, I love getting outside my world of business and being able to sit and have this conversation. But now you have your toes in it now.
Yep.
So I'm like,
right.
I got to stop spending less time with Dean because he made me mad about Pluto a long, long time ago. We knew we were going to touch on that. And then now he's in the world of business. So I'm like, what do I do, man? Huh?
Well, that's good. This is still a new field of entrepreneurship. But it is kind of funny because my family thinks this is like they thought I'd be an independent business person anyway. So like the fact that I'm an independent astronomer, they're like, well, I like the independent part. I still don't know about this astronomy business. Can't you do? Can't you be a lawyer? I was like, no, this is just a lot more fun.
It's neat to have. I still love this about our city. I don't know if you'll always be Cincinnati, tied down. I don't know. Who knows, right?
Right.
But I love that our city's big enough to have all these different fields and avenues and features that somebody like Dean can grow up in his astronomer brain, right, and come from Cincinnati. I just think it's special. We have to come back here every day, and there's so many people like you around. And boring business people like me will come around and want to talk to guys like you all the time.
Yeah, but you started it from scratch too. So I mean, you remember what that was like.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But I think those are really, really hard days. So I think I just like that there's so many different. We have our own moon, our own Mars, our own universe. We have our own galaxy right here, and I love it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just if it's Cincinnati unique thing, but it does seem like a lot of people can find their own paths here, and there's opportunities for that to be done, and that's really encouraging. So I don't know if that's like that other places, but
there's probably some.
Yeah,
I don't think it's normal.
Yeah,
but there's probably some.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to talk to us about your lovely relationship with our moon? And
I know.
I'm still a little mad we didn't get totality here.
I tried to tell you, cancel work, and
some of us had to work, Dean.
I understand.
This thing costs money to operate.
I understand, and it all fall apart. That one day you could have done a field trip out to,
Wapakoneta. So here's what we saw. I think we got this one.
Okay, yeah, it was close to that, or maybe even that one.
Maybe.
Right there,
yeah. But I was disappointed because it really didn't get dark.
Well, I told you that.
Well, I know, but it didn't get dark. So this will be the final thing we wrap up on. Why the heck do meteorologists, we talked about this, I was like, I'm going to hit the meteorologist.
Yeah, we probably should.
Yeah, and so I know it's a fun daily thing for humans to do is to hate the meteorologist. But weather's a part of every day for us. So cold, hot, storms, rain, not. So why is it so difficult for meteorologists? We can know all that we know about space and the moon and astronomy and science and biology. Why is this so difficult to get this weather forecast right?
It's really tough. It's baffling, and it's still frustrating to this day.
But some get it right very often.
Well, broken clocks right twice every day. But that's what they say about it. And for meteorologists, they're right 50% of the time. Or isn't that the joke that what job can you be right less than half the time and still keep it? But anyway, sorry, meteorologists, because I love y'all. But you did let us down on Eclipse Day because the weather forecasts were all over the place, even that morning. And so it is a complicated field. There's so many factors going into this. There's wind direction. There's the unequal.
But we should know. We know how fast this ball is spinning.
I know.
We know where the sun's going to be. We know where the moon's going to be. We know when the ocean's going to be at low tide and high tide. We know these things.
I know.
So what is it about Mother Nature that is so unpredictable still when there's so many things we can predict?
I know. I wish I knew what the factor was that makes it so varying, but I know that they're at the whims of their models and that they're, the statistically things happen this way. But I think maybe there's one big factor is climate is changing. As being an astronomer for 20 some years, you're an informal weather predictor also, because you got to know when it's going to be clear. So I've been kind of figuring out the tools that I use to be able to figure out if it's going to be clear or not. And I mean, this February, this was the clearest February I've ever seen in 25 years of Cincinnati. Something's going on. It's not supposed to be like that. You're supposed to be dreary, miserable, and hating life in Cincinnati in February. And I was optimistic and it's because I had my own business. But anyway, it could be because it was sunnier, it was clear skies. I was like, I like this, but something's going on. And then when we come to April and the eclipse day, the standard model says the last 125 years, it's going to be cloudy. But maybe the data from 100 years ago doesn't count anymore. Like maybe you need to just say, what's the last 20 years? And so I will give.
You're going to let them off the hook?
I'm going to let them off the hook by not calling them out individually, but I will call out who was right and who did encourage me was Jennifer Ketchmark. Jennifer, well done. You were the one person I heard that said, looking good, Ohio, Indiana. And because there's a website that I traditionally use for weather prediction for astronomy, it's called Clear Dark Sky. And it's run by an amateur guy that has some figure out how to do it. I don't know how he does it, but he gets weather prediction for cloud cover prediction for all around the world. And he's generally right. And he said clear the whole time. And I was listening to all those other people saying cloudy, probably cloudy. And I should just listen to him. And so clear dark sky. That's where I'm going.
There you go.
Sorry, I'm ignoring everybody else. All you guys, all your meteorologists.
We might not put that out.
Okay.
We're never going to get a meteorologist who's
right.
an entrepreneur on here ever.
That's right. Sorry, you did great. come talk to Mark. Yeah, you might want to.
We might want to cut that
you
out.
Could say Jennifer did good. You want to have Jennifer over here. That's for sure.
Hey man, thanks for coming in. Love the conversation again. Maybe in 2026, you're going to come in and shoot and use the studio and stuff. But maybe in 2026, who knows? Maybe someone here goes on the trip to Spain.
There we go. I mean, it is going to be $7,000 plus gratuity. So, Pivot will have to fork us up, I would think.
Wow. Okay. Well, you know what we'll do? We'll view that from afar again, and we'll see this part of the eclipse instead of that. But thanks, man. I hope, wish you all the massive success here the rest of the year.
I appreciate it. And you know this, and but you were one of the first people I told when I made the plunge, and appreciate the feedback as well. And like I said, surround yourself by people who are very positive, and you did great. It was good timing talking to you. So I really
awesome.
Appreciate it. I'll never forget that.
I think so. Who knows? Next 5-10 years, we'll still have a lot to learn from each other.
That's right.
Awesome, man.
That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yep.